All right, guys, in today's video, I'm going to be messing around with some Plasti dip. I've seen a couple of videos recently about Plasti dip and guys using, I think, wire from Wireworks just did some pliers and dipped them in there. I've been holding on to this forever. I picked it up at an estate sale a while ago. Seems like it's still good. It's sealed. And then I recently picked up this stuff that you could spray on. So my goal is to restore these Craftsman pliers. Look how cool they are. Look at the tips on them. I mean, they are old. At some point, somebody used electrical tape and some other tape here to try to make a handle. I'm going to make a handle out of it with the Plasti dip. I do not have a pair of pliers that looks like this, so that is a really cool design. So we'll clean them up on the wire wheel, take a look at them, and maybe we'll do we're definitely going to do a Plasti dip handle on it. But what I may do first is what I did with these duckbill pliers that I redid recently, which I really love. These are Uticas and they came out beautiful and I use them all the time. Is I put a little bit of heat shrink on it first. Well, that's what I did on these completely, but what I might do with these is put the heat shrink first, then dip it in the Plasti dip, and it might give it a really nice cushion grip, so I'm going to do that. And then what I want to do with this socket set, you can see it's all beat up here. It's all cracked, damaged, it's caving in. My goal is to reinforce it somehow and then spray it with the Plasti dip. So let's see how it comes out. So let's take a look at these pliers now that they're off the wire wheel. Not going to make any video or show you any video of me wire wheeling them, as well as putting them through the fiber wheel, which I'm going to do next, and possibly even touch them up on the belt sander. And then ultimately polish them out. If you want to see how I do that, it's very similar to many other videos. I'll put the link in there to these Utica pliers that I restored if you want to see that. But today I really just want to show more about the handles and doing the Plasti dip. And here's what the tray looks like. And you could tell, you got daylight through there. It's brittle. It's dirty. So I'm just going to lightly wash it, try not to crack it. And then start reinforcing it. I think what I'm going to do is maybe start with using some electrical tape. I had luck with that when doing these with the SK trays. The SK trays were a little thicker though, and they're black. So I got some white electrical tape, and I'm going to see if I could just kind of reinforce them, get them back into shape, and then spray them with the Plasti dip. All right, so I am almost ready to dip it here. Just want to show you what it looks like off of the fiber wheel and the wire wheel. Oiled them up, seem really good. Was only really concerned about giving them a good shot down to here. Did hit this, but you can see it's a little rough there, and that's okay because that's where the Plasti dip's gonna go. But I am very happy with the way these came out. I got this new monster fiber wheel. I'll put a link in the description below. It is amazing. I'm gonna have to make a video using it. It almost works like a belt sander. It took all of the pitting out. I mean, that was deep pitting, and normally I'd have to use that on a belt sander, which is not a big deal, but this nice 2-inch fiber wheel is super aggressive, and it was able to knock the pitting out. And you just got more control with a fiber wheel to work the nooks and crannies. And then I went over it with the regular fiber wheel, which is more soft, and that kind of gave it a nice little finish to it. And then I hit it on the polisher, and I'll put a link to that maybe in here as well. If not, just check my videos. I just did a review on my buffer polisher. So let's get the shrink wrap handles on, or the heat shrink, and dipped into the Plasti dip. And I just gave this a quick rinse. It's still got some dirt in it and whatnot, or stains. It's drying right now, but for the most part I was able to wash it and get all the grease out. So let's keep moving along. So at this point you could basically just stop. I mean, if you didn't want to do the Plasti dip, this is just some regular heat shrink from Home Depot. They make a nice handle. You put it on 30 seconds or so with the heat gun, and it'll work well. I did leave a little bit of room on the bottom, so because I felt when I used it in the past, if I went too far, it would kind of give a funny look at the end. So we'll let the Plasti dip cover that. Well, the instructions say you should drop it in about 1 inch every 5 seconds. And I put both handles in the first time, and I had a little wire attached to it. And I just gradually dropped it in. I'm trying to get a feel for how the material works, as you can see there. And then kind of did the same thing on the way up there, just kind of pulled it out gradually. And that was the first coat. Looks a little lumpy there, but it has a way of kind of settling as it dries, and it kind of self-levels. So the second pass at it, I thought I would try to do one handle at a time, thinking maybe I would have a little bit more control, as well as I thought maybe it was going to get a little too wide. I let it dry about an hour. They say you could let it dry a half hour in between coats, but I let it dry a little bit more, and then it just wasn't working. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to drop both handles in. I went a little bit quicker into it, let it sit there a minute, and then I pulled it out, and wow. So I should have probably followed the instructions a little better there. She was a thick second coat, definitely really lumpy. So I dropped it in real quick, trying to smooth it back out. So I did that on each handle there real quickly, let it drip dry. And it came out pretty good because it self-levels pretty nice. You just kind of got to be patient, and then I just kind of let the ends drip out because it was on there pretty heavy. And I just kind of scraped it off as it dripped down there. And then this was the final coat. And I let this one dry. They said 4 hours before use, so I just basically left it overnight. Let's take a look at how I reinforced that socket set tray. All right, so I broke out this vintage glue gun that still had the saran wrap on it. There it is. Bought it for a couple of dollars, and it seemed to work pretty good. I used a lot of hot glue behind it to kind of reinforce it, hit the corners a little bit, and it straightened it out because it had a real bow in it. And with that, you can see it made it pretty stiff. So I used that with a little bit of white electrical tape in certain spots to reinforce it, and it seems like it's in pretty good shape now. It sealed up a lot of the cracks and reinforced it. So now let's spray it with the spray Plasti dip. So here I am putting on the first coat, and it was definitely breezy out there, as you could see. It wasn't the best conditions to do it, but you got to do it in a ventilated area. And it was a little bit difficult because it wasn't smooth. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in it, and you have to kind of work it. It's not as easy to use as paint, but it is somewhat pretty easy to use. I shaked it a lot, shook it up in between. And I put the first coat on, as you can see here, pretty heavy. If I had to do it again, maybe I would have done it a little bit thinner of a first coat. But I laid it in there pretty good. So here is the second coat, very similar to the first. As you can see there, it had a pretty nice base on it. And I laid on a pretty nice, thick second coat, as you can see here. Here is some real speed third coat action. I laid it on its side because it is self-leveling, and I was able to work it into the nooks and crannies. And I actually flipped it after it dried and did the other side as well. And that was a pretty good approach. It almost laid in a little better than having it laying flat. All right, we are donezo here. And let's take a look at how nice these pliers came out. These beautiful old Craftsman. Love the way the finish came out on the steel. Just good high quality steel. And let's take a look at these handles. So like I mentioned earlier and you saw, they leveled out really nice. Are they perfect? No, but they are beefy. Did I need to put the shrink wrap, the heat shrink underneath? Probably not. What I did do is come with a little razor blade and clean up those edges a little bit. And that seemed to work really well. And I had some heavy drips on the bottom. It was just a lot of excess rubber. So after it was all said and done, I sliced it off, made it nice and square, and then I dipped it back in just ever so slightly. And then I let it dry upside down to cover it, and it gave it a nice end finish. They feel wonderful. They are super thick. And they feel like they were made on here. So I definitely gotta recommend the Plasti dip for the handles. No need to put the heat shrink if you don't need to. Now let's take a look at how the socket tray came out. So I showed you earlier I reinforced the bottom with some good glue, and that seemed to do wonders for reinforcing it. But let me tell you, this thing went from being a floppy, sloppy piece of brittle plastic to something that's actually, you know, you could see it's sturdy. You could hear it. I mean, that's 3 coats, maybe 4 in certain spots. I did not go crazy on the sides, just put about 2 coats around the edges. You can see I did reinforce this with the electrical tape around the edges and then put the plastic dip on top. I could have put a lot more on it, chose not to. It did dry with some air bubbles in certain spots, just because of the way I guess I put it on so heavy. I don't know, I guess I could have put it on a little thinner as I learned to use it. You could see where I put the electrical tape on here. There's a little bit of a line. If I had to do it again, I would have just reinforced the electrical tape from the bottom and let the plastic dip coat it from the top. That's the only thing, but I'm not looking to win a beauty contest here. The plastic dip did cover it. It just doesn't look as seamless. So really happy with the way that came out for my first pass at it. They say you can paint this. So I was thinking about putting a coat of just white spray paint, like a semi-gloss, to protect it a little bit more, because that does feel a little bit like if you get grease on this, that's going to be shot. But who cares? At the end of the day, it was really to just reinforce it. So let's see how it holds up the sockets and the ratchet. So how about that? I'll tell you, they fit in there like a glove now. You don't get that little bit of rattle in there because it does add mass. It adds a little bit of thickness to this for sure. It definitely won't rattle when you're driving around with it or you got it somewhere. Listen to that. You don't even hear them rattle anymore. They fit in there like a glove with a few coats. And it is sturdy. I mean, compared to that brittle, floppy piece of plastic, and now I got this in there, it fits like a glove. So overall, definitely recommend the Plasti Dip spray. Just my first time using it, so we'll use it on other projects in the future. Would definitely recommend the dippy stuff, or whatever you want to call it, the Plasti Dip. You dip in and you could restore some projects. So some nice tools to add to your tool projects and restoration arsenal. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe. If you like tool hauls, if you like tool restorations, if you like tool reviews, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate the support. If you would like a channel sticker, send me an email, tomguntools@gmail.com. My only ask is that you're a subscriber or you subscribe, and I'll mail one out to you for free. And remember, the world has enough guys, so be a man. Thanks for watching, guys.